Okay, bad news. I'm not here to give you an exact practice plan that will magically change your life, but instead we're diving into 5 science-backed concepts that you can use to design your ideal and evidence-based practice routine and to reach your personal goals in music, because everyone is unique, as are their goals. When I was younger, I used to practice guitar for over 6 hours a day, but I often felt like I made little to no progress, and now I'm accomplishing more in less than half that time. And I think this raises an important question. What makes a practice session good? Okay, so the first concept we're looking at is called distributed practice, also known as spaced repetition. So most of us have a tendency to sit down a day, practice for 3 or 4 hours, longer or less, doesn't matter, feeling great about ourselves and our skills, and suddenly we just skip a day or two, or even more, and it's completely unintentional. It just happens because we're tired, we're busy, or we're both, right? It's really unintentional, but you can imagine how good that is for your progress, right? But even if you practice daily, let's say 2 hours a day, there are 2 main routes you can go down. The first is doing it in one big block, because you know that if you stand up and leave your instrument, there's a pretty good chance that you won't sit back again, and it's just much easier to keep going when you're already in it, right? So you just push yourself through the entire planned practice session at just one sit. And this may sound good to you in theory, but the famous clock test designed by British psychologist Norman Mackworth says otherwise. So this test measured sustained attention, and participants had to watch a dot moving on a clock-like shape, and they had to spot when this little dot jumped unexpectedly. And Mackworth found that after about 30 minutes, participants' ability to focus on this one single task significantly declined, and it got even worse after about 60 minutes. And additionally, more recent research suggests that working in focused intervals of 25 to 45 minutes, followed by short breaks, can improve productivity and even mental stamina. So basically, this idea forms the basis of productivity techniques like the world famous Pomodoro technique, which recommends you to work for 25-minute intervals followed by short breaks. So this means that the other route is to sit down multiple times a day for, 15 to 20 or maybe 30 minutes at a time, basically using the free time slots in between your tasks. And that's exactly what I usually do, because this feels way more doable and sustainable for me as an adult with adult things to do. Okay, but how long your breaks should be then, right? Well, James Tyler and Kathleen Burrus in 2008 investigated how work breaks and task switching affected productivity and performance in the workplace. And what they found was really, really interesting, because the most productive workers gave themselves an unbelievable amount of time off. 52 minutes of work to 17 minutes of rest on average. And broadening this idea, another research about verbal recall, which is the ability to remember words or information over time. So this research proved that learning is more effective when study sessions are spread out over time rather than crammed into long sessions. So what this means to us is that instead of practicing for hours at a time every few days, just try practicing daily but less. And going even further, divide your daily practice sessions into 25 to 45 minute long blocks with longer breaks in between them. This method helps your brain retain information better and enhances long-term skill development too. So just like you can't sleep more today to sleep less tomorrow, you can't stockpile or bank your practice efficiency, right? Before we move forward, if you enjoyed this video, consider supporting me on Patreon. You'll get access to exclusive content and help me keep making videos just like this one. Okay, now that we know how to schedule the practice sessions, we need to figure out what to practice, right? There's actually a study from 1978 which showed that practicing different skills in rotation rather than focusing on one thing for an extended period improves both retention and adaptability. So this is called intervalled practice. And for guitarists, this could mean instead of practicing just one Bach prelude all day over and over for weeks and months, just mix it up a little bit, create a variety of practice tasks. Practice scales for 15 minutes, then move to maybe arpeggios for another 15 minutes, then work on your Bach piece for 25 minutes. It doesn't matter. Naturally, these different areas have to be aligned with your musical goals, but there's just so much to choose from. You can do sight reading, you can do ear training, improvisation, composition even, learn new chords, improve your technique, and just that one involves like 30 subcategories, right? We'll talk about goal setting and how to choose the right thing to work on in another video, but my point is, switching between different practice tasks will keep your brain engaged and help you apply what you learn easier. There's actually no science to this next point I want to make, but I still really want to share. When I was 8, I was learning karate at our school, and don't even ask how I ended up there, I have no idea. But our teacher said something that stuck with me for a really long time. He said there are 2 ways of learning anything in life, only 2. One is when you pick something and you lock on it until you become a master of it. Then when you're done, great, you pick something new and you get to ground zero again, repeating this cycle over and over again with every single thing you're trying to learn. On the other hand, the other way is to engage in multiple activities and interests, learning and finding each little by little, as well as letting them affect each other, gaining inspiration from other mediums, which is going to give you, more well-rounded experience, skill set, and outlook on life. But it's also going to make you improve in each of these mediums and areas much slower, because you're dividing your attention into many different things. But when you learn a musical instrument and do sports too, there will be findings in one medium that you can use to improve at the other one as well. Growing up, I often struggled to find a good balance in my learning approach. I guess because I was young and stupid, but I either spread myself too thin across many interests or hyper-focused on one skill at the expense of other important stuff. And I've learned that the key maybe is to find a middle ground, to choose a couple of areas to improve, to explore various interests, but still, to maintain a manageable workload. And, when I noticed that I noticed a lack of progress in the areas I've chosen, that's a pretty good indicator that I've taken on too much. Now that we talked about how to schedule and break up your time into useful practice sessions, let's look at how to practice. And I want to introduce first one of my favorite concepts, which is called deliberate practice. According to a 1993 study by Erickson and colleagues, deliberate practice is when you engage in focused, structured practice with specific goals and immediate feedback. And this one is one of the main differences between beginners and experts. So a huge practice strategy mistake many people make is that they play through an entire piece from the beginning to the end, and they're repeating this over and over again, and this is what they do for practice. Professionals, however, will break down difficult pieces into smaller chunks, focusing on specific techniques or problem areas. And you know what? My students are often surprised because they think they are practicing slowly and in parts, but they actually just don't. So the key here is, I think, intentionality. Every minute of practice should be directed towards improving something specific, something well-defined, right? It has to be also small and specific, so after trying and making an attempt on the piece, you can hear and see an immediate feedback. And if you play the whole piece all the time, it's nearly impossible to measure or even hear and notice the subtle changes and improvements, or the things that go wrong. I remember telling about this to one of my students about deliberate practice, and he was taking notes while I was speaking, and at the end of the lesson he read out loud these notes. And during my minutes-long speech, the only thing he wrote down as a summary was practice like you give a damn. And it made me chuckle because I think he picked out the essence of it. That's really what this is about. That's it. Practice like you give a damn. When I give a damn about a thing, I have a natural curiosity. I am present, I am engaged, and I approach the thing with a problem-solving attitude, right? And yes, I could go on and on about practical elements of how to practice deliberately, but I don't think I have to. Because when you are invested into learning something, you can figure these things out. You just need to give a damn about it. I think a key thing is to let this deliberate practice flow. So don't stick to a strict plan if it doesn't seem to work, and don't be afraid to spend time on researching the composer of a piece or the style or something that doesn't seem to be directly related to actually playing the piece, because these are also part of the experience. So just be present, be aware of your playing, embrace curiosity, and use that curiosity to come up with unique solutions to any practical problems. Okay, I can feel your disappointment, so let's see some exact things to follow maybe. Let's look at a research from Leah Kutz from Griffith University, in which she looked at the unrealistic expectations of adult music students and how to overcome them. So this study followed the learning process of 6 adult piano students for 9 months, with the ultimate solution being a method called self-direction. And self-directional learning means that learners take charge of their learning journey by figuring out what they need to learn, setting goals, finding resources, reflecting, and so on, stuff like that. But in short, this is what she found out. 1. Involving students in selecting repertoire and setting goals increased their engagement and enjoyment. Guided discovery through questioning improved students' critical thinking and engagement. And finally, keeping weekly practice journals helps students focus and communicate better. Now, even if you don't have a teacher and you're working completely on your own, there are some things to take away from this. To enjoy learning, as the student, you have a say in what your goals are and what tools you're going to use to reach them. So you don't have to follow a path just because someone said that's the right one. I actually wasted so much time following paths that weren't for me. So just remember why you started playing music, because ultimately what matters the most is to do things that feel right to you. Instead of repeating a section mindlessly, have short breaks between your attempts and start thinking and questioning. So I think a few examples for good questions would be, do I like this tone? And if not, what can I do about it? Can I do something to make this part easier for myself? Did I feel any tension while playing this part? And if so, where exactly? And so on, stuff like that. So be creative, be critical. Goal setting is inevitable if you want to make good progress. And even if you're not reaching it, that's fine, that's all right. But having a goal in mind will set you in the right direction and will help you notice when you're off track. So just like before, just like we said earlier, use your critical thinking to set realistic and preferably input-based goals. So, for example, a good realistic input-based goal would be to practice 30 minutes every day, while in comparison, an outcome-based goal would be to win a competition. Okay, cool. How do we do that? I have no idea. It's just so much harder to map this out. There are so many things outside of your control in this one with so many variables. So I'd really, really encourage you to go and find input-based goals. If the objective is to learn to play Asturias, a popular classical guitar piece, then I would say maybe my goal is to practice bar chords for 15 minutes every day. So you see what I'm doing here, right? This type of goal setting will get you so much further, it's more sustainable, and it relies on less daily big decision making. Now, setting goals is a great first step, but planning and playing means nothing without reflection, right? That's how you know that you're on the right track. So what I like to say is that success comes from doing plus thinking. But thinking means planning plus reflecting, right? You make a plan, you take the action, and then you reflect on it. So simply put, the way I like to think about practice is that practice is planning, playing, pondering. I know it's so clever, it's so incredibly clever. I came up with it. I wanted this 3P, and I know, I'm so proud. But this is all you need to remember. And finally, journal your progress. Really, even if you're not always happy with your daily performance, I'm telling you, it will feel good to track how much you have learned over time, looking back at it later. And I started tracking my practice sessions, and it's actually quite fun. And it takes maybe a maximum of 5 minutes a day. And it's not a big deal if you miss a day or two. Don't stress on it. Just try to get back at it as soon as you can. It's not a big deal. Journaling is there. Journaling is there to support your progress, not to make you feel overwhelmed or stressed. It's a fun thing. Now, it's also important to note that these methods may not work for everyone. If you have, for example, a learning disability, focusing for 30 minutes straight might be really difficult for you, and that's okay, because these observations came from studying many, many people and finding averages, right? But remember, everyone learns differently, so just take the parts that sound good to you. And finally, I'm planning to make more videos like this one, introducing studies and methodologies on topics from motivation to goal setting and more. So if you enjoy this new approach, please share in the comments what topics you'd like me to cover next. Yeah, please do, because your feedback is really helpful for me to understand better what you guys like, what you guys need, and to choose new topics. So in the meantime, if you had a good time here, check out this video next that's gonna pop up on the screen. And on your way out, don't forget to like and subscribe. And I will see you in the next video. Cheers.